In this video, let's explore how we can bring in an external Git repository. It's a web application to choreo and then deploy and then and the developer workflow. So I did some searching and found out this NextJS example. It's a dashboard example that uses different UI components. So we can bring this report to choreo and then explore how the workflow looks like. Before doing that, we can also run this in our local machine and see it runs, how it is, and so on. Do a git clone here, and then let's try. Since this is a Node.js project, you can do an npm install, and then after that, you can try to do npm run dev at the dev server. Seems to be running on localhost 1000. That. And seems the application is running, and it's an example of how the different web components can be used. Now we can try to bring this repository to choreo. It's the URL, and then let's first create our project. Here my content, and once the project is created, choreo shows us the templates that we can use to create different types of stuff. So since this is a web application, we'll choose the web application rate, and then there are a couple of ways that we can bring in our code. We can bring in through a GitHub repo, Bitbucket, GitLab, or if we have a application running in a container that's already built, we can bring in that container as well. But right now in this demo, we'll just use the public URL. And then once you paste it, it shows us different branches that we can choose to deploy this. Right now, this is only main. And since this is a Node.js application, we'll select the Node.js build pack, and we'll explore other build packs later on. And the project directory is at the root of the directory in GitHub. So we can change this if our application is or basically copy it to a different directory inside that repo. So we'll choose a language version here. We'll choose the latest one, 20.xxx. So we'll leave the port 8080 as a default because when the Next.js runs, it's not the dev server port, but the production like port when the Next.js runs, and which defaults to 8080 in this case. And then we'll click on create, and it's going to create our application. Then once the application is created, we'll switch over to the choreo.dev side, the developer workflow we looked at earlier. And then the first step here is, okay, we bring in our code and then trigger a build. It's going to build this project and then create a Docker image and then do a security scan and then push to image registry. Now the app is created, so we'll go inside that and then click on the build section. Here you can click on the build latest button, which will build the latest commit, or you can click on the show commits to look at what other commits are there. And then you can choose a particular commit and then decide to build that as well. Right now the first one here is the latest one, so we'll click on build here. Going to build the latest commit. In a little bit it's going to show us the progress of the build command or the build action, and then we'll be able to see what are the steps that's going to take, what's the current step, what's the next step, and so on. So still it's starting the build action. Once the build action is starts, first it'll check out the code and then do a local build, which is important because it's going to build this project in a clean environment. So we know with a high degree of confidence that this is a repeatable build in a clean environment. And once the build is done, then it will move on to doing the Docker build. Once the build is successful, we can look at the build log as well. We have full logs here on what it did. And if there were any errors in this step, we'll be able to see errors in this through this log component. So once the build is done, let's go to the deploy section. And then let's deploy this to our development environments. So as you can see, when you just sign up, we have two environments, development and production. And of course, we can create more environments through the same Choreo dashboard as well. So right now, let's do this config and deploy. You can also do file mounts here, but right now we don't have any file mounts. So we'll just click on deploy. And this is going to deploy the image it created and then pushed into a registry. And then it's going to pull it back and then deploy it to the development cluster, development Kubernetes cluster. And then since this is a web application, we also get a URL automatically. So Choreo creates a URL for this automatically. And then let's click on this, see whether we can see the same web application. Ideally, it should give the same web application as we saw in our local machine. And yes, so we see the same. So the application seems to be the same now. So let's go back into the Choreo console. And then let's go to the DevOps view here and then click on runtime. And now we can see the Kubernetes level information about, okay, we have one pod running. We can also get the real-time logs of this container. Say this server started on port 8080. And then we'll also navigate to the observability section and then click on metrics. And then it'll show the successful and failure error counts. And then we can go to the runtime logs here, which is going to aggregate logs from all the running pods and then show a aggregated view. But right now we have only one container that's running. So that's a small, like a short video on how we can bring in external GitHub repo and then using the developer workflow that's built into Choreo, deploying an app